"Say hi to the sharks," my daughter-in-law whispered in my ear, her voice sweet enough to chill my blood just before that cold hand shoved hard between my shoulder blades. I stumbled, felt the sea wind slice my skin, then dropped straight into the black water of Narragansett Bay. In that split second, I caught the eyes of my only son frozen, not saving me, not speaking, just watching his mother sink. Salt water flooded my mouth, the bitterness mixing with a pain nothing could match. So the recovery cruise was only the opening act to betrayal. In that knife-cold water, I swore that if I lived, I'd teach them what real fear feels like. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey. And if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. That morning the Rhode Island sun was as gentle as ever, light glittering across Narragansett Bay. I, Lorraine Whitaker, 68, had just finished 6 weeks of recovery after a hip replacement. When my son called, I took it as a good sign. "Mom, we want to take you out on the yacht today, celebrate your recovery." Just the three of us, like old times. Caleb's voice sounded warm. It had been a long time since he called me without a financial or work reason. I said yes right away, partly because I missed him, partly because I craved feeling needed. Early that morning, I picked my favorite navy dress, the color my husband, Robert, used to say made my eyes brighter. I spritzed a little light perfume and tied on the silk scarf he left me. In the mirror, I saw an older woman, but still steady, still believing. I thought maybe 2 years after Robert passed, Caleb had changed. Maybe my son truly wanted to reconnect. I was that naive. When I reached the Newport Marina, I saw Evelyn's dream sleek, white-hulled, my mother's name carved on the side. I'd never given permission for that. I stepped aboard, frowning, but forced a smile when Caleb opened his arms. "Mom, you look beautiful. Today you've got to relax." His hug was cold, missing the weight of real affection. Marissa, his wife, stood behind him, dark red lipstick, a smile sharp as a blade. "You look wonderful. I'll make you a mimosa, something special for today." I thanked her, though my heart dipped a little. The yacht pulled away. The engine hummed, the water shimmered silver. I leaned back into the leather seat, sea breeze lifting my mostly gray hair. Everything was calm, too calm. Caleb chatted, pitching a plan to simplify everything, stressing I should worry less about assets and hand management to the younger generation. Marissa nodded, poured more champagne, and murmured, "You don't need the hassle of paperwork and accounts. Let us take care of everything." I kept my voice even. "I'm still clear enough to sign my own checks, Marissa." She smiled, eyes like needles. "Of course, Mom. It's just, sometimes people don't realize they're starting to forget the little things." A chill ran my spine. I noticed her phone on the table camera pointed at me. She pretended to take selfies, but the angle clearly captured me raising a glass, smiling, not looking steady. I set my glass down, my voice dropping. "Caleb, I want to go back. I'm tired." My son glanced at his wife, then said flatly, "No, Mom. You need to hear us out." I looked straight at him. "You're scaring me. We just want to be sure everything's in order. You know how messy legal stuff gets if anything happens." Marissa slid in, sweet and scripted. "Do you remember what the doctor said about post-surgery? About short-term memory being affected?" I narrowed my eyes. "What are you implying?" "Nothing at all, Mom," she smiled. "Just that, when the time comes, it's better if someone can sign for you." My hand trembled, but anger surged. I suddenly saw it. Since Robert died, they'd been building a wall around me. My old attorney stopped taking calls, accounts under review, bank calls rerouted through Caleb. I searched my son's eyes for a trace of the boy I'd held and rocked to sleep. Nothing. Only cold calculation. "I want to go ashore. Now." Caleb's voice dropped, cold as the water around us. "You're not going anywhere." Marissa came close, and in that exact moment she whispered the line that shoved me to the edge of life and death. "Say hi to the sharks." The shove wasn't hard, but it was enough to throw me off balance. A heartbeat later, I dropped off the deck. Water exploded around me, salt burning my mouth like needles. In that split moment, I saw them on the deck, Caleb faking panic, Marissa clutching her chest, putting on shock. Then they turned away. I kicked, but the dress and shoes dragged me down. My head spun, hips screaming, but survival took over. I'd swum every morning with Robert for 20 years. He used to say, "The ocean doesn't kill you, Lorraine. Fear does." I held my breath, kicked hard, and aimed for a distant light, some small fishing boat. Every yard burned. It felt like someone was squeezing my lungs, but I didn't stop. I saw Caleb's eyes as I fell, no love, only relief. I thought of Robert. He always said I was stronger than I believed. He was right. I broke the surface, coughing, and shouted hoarsely, "Help! Somebody!" A flashlight swept my way. A rough male voice barked, "Holy hell! Someone in the water! Hold that line! Pull her up!" I grabbed the rope. Sun-browned arms hauled me onto a rough wooden deck. I collapsed, shaking so hard my bones rattled. Salt, motor oil, and gasoline smoke, smells of survival. The man threw a blanket around me. "Ma'am, what happened? Where'd you fall from?" I opened my mouth, breath ragged, voice shaking. Don't call the Coast Guard. Let them think I'm dead." He, my rescuer, held my gaze, more than surprised, something like compassion there. "My name's Hank," he said quietly. "People usually say that when they're running from the devil." I nodded. "Not the devil, my own blood." Right then I knew. Lorraine Whitaker died on that yacht. The woman pulled from the bay was someone else. Someone who would live to take justice back, inch by inch. Curled in a soaked blanket on Hank's wooden deck, I shut my eyes, tried to steady my breathing. The wind burned my face, but old images flickered, small details I'd brushed off now snapping into place like a completed puzzle of betrayal. It began months earlier, right after I left the hospital. I remember that first morning back in my Newport condo, sunlight in the windows, gulls crying, and Caleb standing in my living room with a thick stack of papers. His voice was light as air. "Mom, I've talked to your financial advisor. He'll help reorganize your portfolio. You don't need to worry." I smiled with relief. After Robert passed, I struggled with the mountain of paperwork and investments from his tech company. It seemed my son was stepping up, but within weeks, things slipped. My financial advisor, who used to call weekly, went silent, emails unanswered. When I phoned, his assistant said, "He's no longer handling your account. All updates will go through Caleb Whitaker." I was stunned. Why would my account go through my son when I hadn't signed any power of attorney? I called my longtime accountant of nearly 20 years. He apologized for being booked, rescheduled, then canceled. My personal attorney, Clarice Nolan, once Robert's close friend, started dodging me too. Calls went to voicemail. I left messages, sent emails, nothing. People around me vanished in sync, leaving me standing alone in a web of lies I didn't yet see. I told myself they were busy, or it was all coincidence. Then Caleb started showing up more. He brought fruit, pill boxes, and a soft smile. "You need me to take care of you. After surgery, your memory's more forgetful, right?" he said, with a hint of pity. I frowned. "I remember fine, Caleb. I'm just tired. Sometimes." "I know, but don't push it. You should think about streamlining assets, trusts, the company. Simplify to manage easily." It sounded caring, but his eyes held something cold, calculating. Robert used to say, "If someone says they love you but won't meet your eyes, pay attention." I didn't listen then. Next came Marissa, my daughter-in-law. After my hip surgery, she stayed 2 weeks. At first I was grateful. She cooked, cleaned, reminded me to take pills. Then oddities crept in. The painkiller bottle on the table had relabeled instructions, dosages crossed out and rewritten. When I asked, she smiled. The doctor adjusted it a bit so you can sleep. I was suspicious, but when I called the clinic, the nurse said, "We didn't change the prescription." I asked Marissa. She stayed cool. Maybe they forgot to update the system. Don't worry. One afternoon she brought papers. "Mom, this is a temporary power of attorney, just so we can pay bills for you when you're in the hospital." Purely procedural sign quickly for convenience. I lifted the pen, then froze. Robert had taught me, no one needs your signature rights if they truly want to help. I set the pen down and smiled lightly. "Thanks, but I can pay my own." Something dark flickered in Marissa's eyes, then the sweet mask returned. Looking back, each small thing was a drop adding up to a wave. I tried to believe they cared, but deep down, something was twisted. I felt watched, staged. Then came the fateful yacht trip. On deck, between waves and champagne, the last pieces clicked. Marissa kept her phone angled at me. She smiled, adjusted the lens. A family video for the memory. I saw the light reflected in the camera enough to know it was recording. I made polite comments about money, about how, if Robert were alive, he'd want Caleb to be more stable. Caleb nodded, mouth smiling, eyes cold. I see now they wanted footage of me rambling about money while tipsy. Proof I was no longer sound. As the yacht moved farther out, Newport shrank to a thin line, the water flat as glass. Fear crept in. I said, "We're too far. Let's turn back." Caleb said nothing, just raised his glass and stared at the sea. Marissa adjusted her phone. The silence was suspicious. "Caleb, I want to go back." "No, Mom. There's more to discuss." His voice went rough, every word pressed down. A vein stood out on his hand holding the glass. "We just want to be sure you're prepared in case you aren't clear-minded anymore." "Not clear-minded?" I repeated, heart clamping tight. Marissa tilted her head, soft as cotton, empty inside. "The doctor said you forget things, right? Early signs, Lorraine. We're just worried." I didn't answer. I looked down at the water. Ripples like ribbons of glass. Then I knew. They weren't going to wait. A boating accident was perfect. No witnesses, no evidence, no crime. A woman fresh from surgery, on pain meds, showing confusion, slips overboard too easy to believe. I took a deep breath, set my hand on the rail. I started to step back, but Marissa was already behind me, too close, too ready. Caleb gave me one last look, a tiny nod like signing a contract. Then the shove light, and enough to sever every illusion I had about a mother's bond. Now, in the dim light of the fishing boat, I see every layer of deceit I'd refused to face. Every concern, every favor, just steps toward the ending they scripted. They wanted me gone quietly, leaving them everything: wealth, reputation, power, and a ticket to the luxury life I built. I shook not from cold but fury. Nearly 40 years as a mother, I thought my love was big enough that my child would never harm me. Now I know, greed can swallow anything, even blood. On deck, Hank handed me a hot cup of tea. "You've been through hell, haven't you?" I met his eyes, voice low. "They tried to kill me for money, but I'm still alive, and that is their problem." Offshore, waves kept their steady beat. I looked toward the pitch-black horizon where the lit yacht drifted toward shore, toward my own home. I knew when it docked, Caleb and Marissa would start the new life they thought erased me. But they didn't know that tonight I started over too, with one purpose: to make them pay for calling it an accident. I still remember my hand slipping from the brine, then someone gripping tight and hauling me out of the cold churn. Wind slapped my face as a hoarse voice barked, "Careful, Maya! Hold that line tight!" My body felt like stone, my breath in pieces, vision blurred by salt. Pulled onto the deck, I collapsed, shaking like a drawn wire. A thick blanket smelling of salt and diesel wrapped my shoulders, and that voice came again, warm, dry, commanding. "Ma'am, don't sleep. Look at me, can you hear me?" I nodded weakly. Yellow light fell across the weathered face of a middle-aged man, gray stubble on his jaw. Beside him, a teen girl, 16, maybe 17, poured warm water into a plastic cup, hands trembling as she offered it. "Drink, ma'am. It's cold out here." Her voice was gentle, a little shaky, but sincere. I sipped. The heat touched my lips, slid down my throat, life returning inch by inch. "Thank you," I rasped. I fell off a yacht." The man frowned. "What yacht runs this late at night? Anyone else with you? Did you slip?" I looked up at him, stranger's eyes. I somehow trusted in that light. "Not slip," I said softly. "Pushed." He froze. The girl Maya went wide-eyed. He set a hand on the wheel, silent a few beats, then asked slowly, "Do you want me to call the Coast Guard? They'll get you to a hospital, handle the rest." I shook my head fast, voice urgent. "No, please don't. Let them think I'm dead." He swung around, assessing, not skeptical, just understanding. "You sure? Out here, not calling it in, if anyone asks. I'm sure." I gripped his hand, fingers like ice. "If you call, they'll know. And then they'll try again. Please believe me." He looked at my trembling hand, clutching his, then nodded. "Name's Hank O'Rourke. I've been on the water my whole life, seen a lot, but never anyone like you. All right, I won't call, but I'm taking you ashore to warm up. You won't last long in this cold." The wooden boat turned west, gliding through a thick, black night. Wind whipped my wet hair, freezing me numb, but inside something lit a feeling I hadn't had in years, the will to live. Maya, small, curly-haired, bright dark eyes, sat across from me, watching. "Ma'am, who did this to you? Do you want us to call the police?" I shook my head. "If you call, they'll get here before the police. You don't understand, they have money, lawyers, everything." She hesitated. "Then, what are you going to do?" I stared into the dark ahead. "Survive, and wait for my moment." Hank nodded slightly, as if he'd known the answer. As the boat nosed into a narrow inlet, he pointed. "There's a side dock. No one comes by at night. I know a place you can stay a few days. The owner keeps quiet if you pay cash." Fog clung to the dock when we tied up. I shivered, each breath turning to mist. Hank lifted me out. Maya carefully carried the blankets. Under dim streetlights stood a small 2-story wooden house with a sign, "Asha's Bay Inn, Rooms and Breakfast." The air smelled like old pastry and ginger. Hank knocked 3 short times. The door cracked open. A woman my age, brown skin, neat bun, bright kind eyes stared. "Hank, who are you bringing here at this hour?" "Someone in trouble. Needs shelter, pays cash." She looked me up and down, clothes still wet, then opened the door wide. "Come in. We don't ask about the past." "Hear, hear." Warmth from a wood stove rolled over me. I almost cried. The owner, Asha Patel, pointed up the wooden stairs. "Bathrooms upstairs. Hot water." "I'll bring towels and dry clothes." I thanked her, voice thick. When the hot water hit my skin, I closed my eyes and let it rinse away salt and the dried blood at my neck. In the steam, I saw Caleb and Marissa's faces smiling over their glasses as I fell into darkness. I turned the tap harder, water roaring as if it could scrub the image away, but the hurt stayed. Wrapped in a robe, I came back down. Asha set a hot ginger tea by the window. "Drink, you'll warm up." I cupped it, heat moving through my fingers. "Thank you." "You're very kind." She smiled. "Just doing what's right. Hank said you need quiet for a few days." I nodded. "Only a few. I won't cause trouble." "There's no trouble here, only people trying to start over." Alone at the table, I listened to wind slip through the doorframe, then looked at an old laptop on the shelf screen faintly glowing. "Asha said I could use it." I opened a browser, heart pounding as I typed my name. Lorraine Whitaker. In seconds, headlines poured in. Tech billionaire Lorraine Whitaker missing after yacht accident. Police suspect careless accident. Victim reportedly showed signs of cognitive decline. The first photo stunned me at last year's birthday. Dazed in a burst of flashes, glass in hand. I remembered. I was tired and hadn't known they planned a surprise. The caption below read, "Whitaker is believed to be in early-stage Alzheimer's, raising family concerns about competency." I went numb. It felt like someone clenched my heart in a fist. They didn't just want my money, they wanted to erase my name, wipe me from the world as if I'd never existed. I pulled the blanket tight and stared through the glass at the far-off sea, moonlight scattered over it. They thought I was dead, and the press helped finish their story. I laughed softly, almost a whisper. All right, let them believe it. But I'm not dead. Asha looked at me from behind the kitchen counter, her eyes more understanding than curious. People usually come here to run from something, but sometimes they stay because they want to take everything back. Which one are you? I set the teacup down and answered, steadier than I'd ever sounded, both. Outside, the waves still lapped gently at the shore. And I, the woman just pulled back from death, began to understand I wasn't just surviving. I'd been reborn. And the quiet of tonight was only the start of another storm, this time one I would make myself. 3 days after the yacht accident, my name was everywhere, all with the same tone, mournful, solemn, and dishonest. Tech billionaire Lorraine Whitaker passes away after a sudden accident. Family confirms she had been battling early-stage Alzheimer's. The press added, a private memorial will be held at Oak Ridge Cemetery. In lieu of flowers, the family requests donations to the World Alzheimer's Fund. I sat still in the small room at Asha's Bay Inn, the newspaper shaking in my hands. Beneath that headline was a photo of Caleb and Marissa holding hands, heads bowed, looking like two souls shattered by grief. They nailed their roles. I had to admit it, they knew how to paint a tragedy that made the world believe they were devoted and loving. Asha came over and set a cup of coffee on the table. You're going, aren't you? I looked up and nodded slowly. I need to see it with my own eyes, otherwise I won't believe what I'm reading. That's dangerous, I know. But sometimes to survive you have to look straight at the people burying you. That morning, the sky was a flat gray and the clouds hung heavy. I wore a wide-brim hat and Asha's dark sweater, and I walked the dirt path to Oak Ridge Cemetery. Bare branches stirred in the wind. From a distance, I saw a few dozen people gathered around the open grave, all in black. In the center, Caleb gripped Marissa's hand, head lowered like a man who'd lost his entire world. The officiant read a long eulogy about a great woman taken too soon by illness and accident. I stood behind the trees, far enough to be safe. My heart beat slow, even cold. It's a strange thing to watch your own burial while you're still breathing. I saw Marissa dab her eyes with a white silk handkerchief, precise, perfect, not a real tear in sight. Caleb's shoulders trembled, but not from emotion. I recognized that tremor, the same one he had when he lied to his father as a boy. I pulled a small notebook from my pocket and marked down everyone present. Robert's old friends, a few former employees, familiar neighbors, but 3 absences caught my eye. Edward Kane, my financial advisor, the man who managed nearly all my remaining shares. Clarice Nolan, the original trust attorney who swore to Robert she would protect me. Lisa Grady, the bank controller who approved all asset transfers. All 3 vanished. No flowers, no condolences. Too neat to be coincidence. The service ended quickly. People drifted away. Caleb set a bouquet of white flowers on the grave, then turned to hug Marissa. I saw her hand smooth his back, and a thin, sharp smile flickered when no one was looking. I understood then. To them, this wasn't a funeral, it was a victory day. When the crowd had gone, I moved closer, my steps quiet as a shadow. The new stone bore my name, Lorraine E. Whitaker, 1957, 2025. Beloved mother, visionary, gone too soon. I read each word, then let out a small laugh. Beloved mother. Sure. They picked that line to convince everyone the family bond was intact. The wind rose, tugging loose strands of hair across my forehead. I set a single white daisy on the wet soil, not for the deceased, but for myself, the one just born again. I walked away, leaving that carved stone like a screen for what I was going to do next. That afternoon, back at the inn, Asha was making tea. I told her everything, detail by detail. She listened, then asked quietly, "Do you think they did this alone?" "I don't know yet," I said. "But I feel someone's behind them, someone who knows the law and cleared the path step by step." Asha nodded, then said slowly, "In this town, there's a name people mention when they want things done clean and fast: Bianca Mercer, an attorney who specializes in asset transfers, trusts, and settling ownership. I saw that name in a murky dispute last year. You might want to check." I wrote it down immediately. The name landed like a puzzle piece snapping into place: Bianca Mercer. I remembered the initials I'd seen in the files at Caleb's BM, at the end of every Project Lorraine note. Maybe that was her. That night, after Asha was asleep, I opened her old laptop and went back online under an alias. I started scanning anyone tied to my assets. The deeper I dug, the worse it looked. Trusts that once had my name were now temporarily transferred to an entity called Mercer and Hale Advisory Group, Hale being Marissa's last name. It felt like someone squeezed my chest. Everything had been arranged carefully, cleverly, almost legally. I opened a new note and listed everyone with access to the trust systems: Caleb, Marissa, Bianca Mercer, and Edward Kane. I drew arrows between them, marking connections by job, timeline, and benefit. A network began to form. At its center was MT, the initials I'd seen on the Project Lorraine notes. I wondered if that stood for Mercer Trust or Mercer and Torres, or something else I hadn't uncovered yet. The clock was a little past 11 p.m. Outside, the wind hissed through the doorframe, and thin moonlight fell over the financial map I'd sketched on paper. I stared at the circled names, a chill running down my rear back. The more I thought, the more certain I was that Caleb and Marissa were only pieces on someone's board. Behind them stood a person who knew the law well enough to turn murder into asset transfer due to incapacity. And the name Bianca Mercer was the key to the whole lock. I closed the notebook and took a long breath. The fire in the stove flickered, casting orange light onto the old walls. In my head, things were clearer than ever. If I wanted justice back, I had to return to where it began, the old house I once thought was safest, now likely hiding the truths they believed I'd never come back to find. I stood, pulled the curtain shut, and looked at my reflection in the glass. That face looked different, not the frail woman shoved off a yacht, but someone quietly preparing to come back from the dead. And tonight, I swore, I would hunt down the people who wrote my obituary while I was still alive. That night, the Newport sky was thick with sea salt gray blue. I put on the heavy coat Asha gave me and slipped my hand into the pocket where I kept a small key darkened by years, the key to the house I once called home. Caleb had never asked for it back. Maybe he figured the dead don't need keys. I left the inn near midnight, when the streets were dark. The road up Beacon Hill was so empty my footsteps echoed on the cold asphalt. The elegant houses on both sides glowed a warm gold, but my house, the Whitaker home, where I lived 30 years with Robert, sat in darkness, only a faint light from the porch camera. I knew its blind spot. I was the one who installed the system to protect the family. The back door was the same. I bent, slid in the key. A quiet click, and in that moment my heart pounded like I was stepping into the past. Inside was cold and too clean, not abandoned, but maintained. The hallway rug had no dust, the sofa was neatly covered, and the air carried the expensive spray Marissa loved. I clicked on the small flashlight. Hank gave me. The beam slid across a polished steel fridge. I eased it open, packed with fresh food, pricey wine, imported cheese, and a tub of infant formula. My heart stopped. The house wasn't empty. Someone lived here often. I moved like a shadow, slipping through the living room. The old mahogany set was gone, replaced by Italian leather, and our wedding photo was off the wall, swapped with a beach shot of Caleb and Marissa. Every trace of me erased, as if they were test driving a life without me. I stopped at Robert's office door where he used to sit for hours at his typewriter, reading company reports, drinking black coffee. It had always been locked, but now it was ajar. I pushed it open. The desk lamps were still on. The room had become a command center. Walls plastered with notes, a whiteboard crammed with writing, and in the middle a thick file stamped in bold, Project Lorraine, Phase 3. Accident. My head swam, but my hands were steady. I pulled out the disposable film camera Hank gave me point and shoot and started photographing every page, every timeline. In the yellow light, Marissa's shaky handwriting was clear. Observation. Patient confuses dates. Forgets meds record on video. Adds sedatives to night dosage. Prepare petition. Declaration of incapacity. MT approved. Those initials MT repeated under approved. At the bottom, a full signature. Bianca Mercer, Esquire, exactly as I suspected. I kept shooting. Each click was a soft countdown in the night. Next to the file, a huge whiteboard was split into 4 columns. Phase 1, Fake Medical Profile, completed. Phase 2, Secure Asset Authority, completed. Phase 3, Boating Accident completed, estimated 05/07. Phase 4, Court declares incapacity and announces inheritance plan in process. The last line was circled in red ink, with Caleb's handwriting beside it. Must finish within 2 weeks, before the audit committee steps in. I dropped into a chair, hands shaking. Page after page proved they'd planned this for a long time, not just to take everything, but to legally destroy me, one step at a time. I flipped to the next stack. Memory Decline Observation Report, Patient L.W. Lorraine Whitaker. Below were precise dates and notes. March 12th, mixed prescriptions, confused morning and night due to Marissa relabeling. March 25th, rambling about assets in front of medical staff. April 30th, forgot doctor's name, prolonged confusion. I drew a long breath. Every proof was one of those foggy, exhausted moments after surgery, and they had staged them. I took a few more shots, then closed the file. In the pile was a loose fax, wrinkled at the corner, from Bianca Mercer to C. Whitaker, M. Whitaker subject, prepare court petition. After the hearing, submit the file with adjusted medical reports. Don't forget signatures. Phase 4 only succeeds if no one questions the death certificate. B.M.'s e-signature glared at the bottom. I slipped it into my coat pocket. This felt like the crucial piece. And right then, white headlights flared at the gate. An engine rumbled. I killed the flashlight, heart in my throat. A familiar voice on the porch. Did you lock the door? I left my phone on the table. Marissa's voice, bright and clear. Yeah, hurry up, I'm dead tired. Caleb's voice, flat. I scanned the room. No way out the front. The only window was by the desk, facing the rose garden, the one I tended for 20 years. I held my breath, slid the latch, and slipped out just as Marissa's soft laugh floated through the living room. The garden soil was damp, the smell of roses mixed with iron in the cold night. I crouched low, moved along the fence, fingers gripping thorns. Every step was a drumbeat in my chest. I was less than 30 feet from the back door when a small, haunting sound cut through an infant's cry. I froze. My heart missed a beat. That sound was unmistakable, thin, broken, from upstairs. I looked up and saw a small light spilling from my old bedroom, the master, a baby. In this house, when that weak cry rose in the dark, my heart cracked. An innocent child, and two people who used to call me Mom. What would you do in my place? Would you stop or turn back and face them? Share how you feel in the comments. I truly want to hear your perspective. I ducked lower, slid along the fence, listening. Caleb's footsteps thudded inside, then Marissa's whisper, "I've got it. You go to sleep. She's up again." "When will it settle?" "It's been 3 weeks and she still isn't on a schedule." 3 weeks. I did the math. 3 weeks since my accident. Cold flooded my veins. They weren't just taking assets. They were raising a child or hiding a darker secret. I backed away from the fence without looking, my hand locked around the camera in my pocket. That night, leaving the house that used to be mine, I knew I'd brushed the last mask of this scheme. And that cry, thin and relentless, followed me all the way back. I barely slept that night. The baby's cry kept echoing in my head, clinging to every heartbeat, reminding me that something worse than betrayal lived in that house. Caleb and Marissa had never said they had a child. No friends knew, no posts, no announcements. In their world, everything got shown off: new house, new car, pricey vacations, yet something as big as a baby was silent. That could only mean one thing: the child wasn't born normally. I got back to the inn near dawn, still shaking with cold and fear. Asha woke as I walked in, but only looked at me without asking. She set a hot tea on the table, let me sit, then gently asked, "What did you see?" I stared into the steam, my voice tight. "A baby, in that house, newborn about 3 weeks. Asha frowned. "Have they told anyone?" "I don't think so. They're hiding her. I don't know why yet, but I'm sure she's tied directly to their plan." I remembered the lines in those files: "Prepare for legitimate heir." I hadn't understood then, but I did now. They needed a child with the Whitaker name to shore up legal claims after my death. A perfect heir to a multi-billion-dollar estate. I told everything to Hank when he came to fix Asha's generator that morning. He listened, then said, "You need someone who can dig without raising alarms. I know a guy, Evan Ross. Private investigator, used to work Boston PD, quit because he couldn't stomach buried evidence. He's quiet, honest, and he owes me." That afternoon, Evan showed up. 40s, tall, the worn face of someone who'd seen too much filth. He shook my hand, eyes steady, neither nosy nor pitying. "Hank says you need to look into a baby and 2 people who tried to kill you." I nodded and handed him the photos I'd taken in the house. He flipped through them, his gaze locked on Project Lorraine. "This isn't just asset theft. There's a whole legal pipeline behind it. I'll need a few days." 3 days later, he returned with a thick file and a heavy look. "I found where they've been going for months," he said. "A high-end fertility clinic in North Boston, North Shore Family Wellness Institute. They don't advertise, only take clients by referral. But I could access their parking lot cameras." He opened his laptop and ran a stream of security images. Clear shots of Caleb and Marissa, black coats, sunglasses, walking into the clinic at different times. One photo showed them carrying a thick envelope, another had Marissa speaking with a woman in a lab coat at the back door. "Cash," Evan said. I checked internal accounting. There's a large payment, $220,000, labeled special consulting fee. "No. Invoice. No. Source." I leaned back, dizzy. "You think they hired a surrogate?" Evan nodded. "I don't just think, I know. North Shore runs something called the Private Heritage Program, a hush-hush surrogacy service for the ultra-rich who want a baby without their names in medical records. I tracked down a list of former nurses. One of them, Leah Torres, agreed to talk. We met Leah at a small cafe near Salem Station. Early 30s, hair tied back, eyes wary. Evan opened gently but straight. "Do you remember a patient named Reed?" "Talia Reed. 18, from Vermont." Leah stiffened, eyes wide, then whispered, "Oh God, Talia, I remember. Sweet kid, skinny, always smiling. She was caring for a rich couple, then she died." My hand clamped the table edge. "How did she die?" Leah swallowed. "The file says obstetric complications, but her pregnancy was perfectly normal. Blood pressure, heart, labs, all stable. That night, the on-call doctor said he'd give a routine injection to support labor. Minutes later, Talia seized and flatlined. No one explained. And the couple disappeared the next morning. Was that couple Caleb and Marissa Whitaker? Leah looked at me, realizing I wasn't guessing. She shivered. "I don't know their real names, but they signed with a C and M. The man said he wanted the birth certificate prepared ahead of time to list them as parents. We were never allowed to ask more." The air thickened. I heard my own heartbeat, slow, heavy, painful as a hammer. "How old was Talia?" 18. She'd just left home in Vermont. Said she wanted to earn money to go back to school. She believed she was helping an infertile family. After she died, the clinic director had everyone sign a new NDA. I quit a week later. I couldn't speak. A teenage girl, young enough to be my granddaughter, killed to hide a baby, and that baby was in the arms of the people who killed her mother. Evan closed the file, his voice dropping. "I can prove at least the cash transaction and the prepped fake birth certificate. But to charge them, you'll need more medical proof, testimony, or recordings." I looked at him, heat rising behind my eyes. "I'll get it." We left the cafe as a light rain began. Boston rain is cold, clinging, like a reminder that guilt leaves traces no matter how you try to wash them away. I pulled up my hood and almost whispered, "They think they can use money to buy blood, buy lives, buy even my legacy. But there's one thing they can't buy." Evan asked quietly. "What's that?" I answered, my eyes looking far away. "The truth. And this time, the truth is what will drown them." Evan found out that Caleb and Marissa always had a nanny working in shifts. The schedule changed weekly, but on Tuesdays, between about 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., both of them usually left the house to sign legal papers at the Mercer and Hale Law Office. That was the only gap I could exploit. 4 hours to get inside the house, meet the person caring for the baby, and plant the seeds of my counterattack. That morning, the sky was overcast, the wind from the bay cold and biting. I wore a gray wool coat with the hood pulled low and carried the folder Evan had prepared, photos of Project Lorraine, Talia Reed's file, and the fake birth certificate of the baby. When the clock struck 11 a.m., I rang the bell. The door opened to a blonde woman of about 30, her face gentle but with the tired eyes of someone lacking sleep. She held the baby in her arms, her voice cautious. "I'm sorry, can I help you?" I took a deep breath. "I'm Lorraine Whitaker, Caleb's mother, and the grandmother of the baby you're holding." Nora, the name on her badge, froze. Her face went pale. "That's impossible. You're dead. I read the papers, saw the news. They said you fell off the yacht and died, right?" I cut in, my voice calm. "But I'm alive, and I need to talk to you right now." She stood still a few seconds, then stepped aside for me to enter. The house was just as I remembered, except now it carried the soft breath of a child. The baby lay in her arms, wide brown eyes silently fixed on me. A look so pure it made my throat tighten. "What's his name?" I asked softly. "Robert Jr., that's what they call him." "No, his real name is Rowan Talia Whitaker," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Rowan to give him a new name, and Talia so he never forgets the birth mother who died for him." Nora clutched the baby tighter, her eyes filling with tears. I pulled from my bag a photo of Talia, the young girl with messy brown hair and a shy smile. She's this child's mother. She was killed in the delivery room, and the couple you're working for are the ones responsible. Nora stared at the photo, then at me, her lips quivering. Oh God, they said the baby was legally adopted. They told me the mother died of an illness. No, she died from an unnecessary injection. And I have proof. I opened the folder and spread Evan's printed documents on the table, photos of the Project Lorraine timeline, medication reports, and Bianca Mercer's facts. Nora's eyes widened. They documented everything, even the plan to kill you. I gave a thin smile. Yes. And now I need you to help me record the final part of this story. I laid a hand on her shoulder, speaking slowly. You stay here. Keep caring for Rowan as usual. But record everything what time they return, their behavior, their calls, the visitors. Use this phone to take photos and store them separately. Evan will collect the data weekly. Don't let them suspect a thing. Nora stayed silent, tears sliding down her face. Then she nodded softly, holding the baby close. I'll do it. For him. He deserves to live the truth. I touched Rowan's cheek lightly and whispered, You'll grow up with the truth, not their lies. That afternoon, Evan installed the surveillance gear, a small recorder hidden in a frame in the living room, a long-life battery camera inside the bedroom humidifier, and a voice monitor under the old mattress. Everything linked to an encrypted drive only Evan and I could access. As I left the house, I stood at the gate and looked back, seeing Nora holding Rowan at the window. Light fell across her face, a mix of fear and resolve. I knew I had found a priceless ally, not a detective, not a lawyer, but another mother ready to protect an innocent life. That night I sat at the desk in my room at the inn, writing by hand a letter to Bianca Mercer. My handwriting steady, deliberate. Dear Miss Mercer, the woman you thought dead is still alive, and she has read every report of Project Lorraine. I suggest you review the file of patient Talia Reed before the court receives another copy from me. I am not seeking justice for myself, but for that girl and for the child named Rowan Talia. See you on the side of the light. I folded the letter, slid it into a white envelope, sealed it with wax. Evan would place it on Bianca Mercer's desk Monday morning when she least expected it. Inside me, a quiet fire flared, not the fear of a betrayed mother, but the will of a survivor ready to reclaim everything, including justice for the voices that could no longer speak. The next morning, the bay wind carried damp and cold through Asha's Bay Inn windows. I sat in the corner of my room, listening to the waves beating against the rocks, my heart strangely calm. Today was the day of the inheritance procedure, the day Caleb, Marissa, and Bianca Mercer would finalize my death on paper, and also the day they'd realize the dead woman could smile. The letter I wrote last night had been delivered by Evan on time. I pictured Bianca opening the envelope in her sleek glass office while presenting documents. The words I wrote by hand would surely freeze their blood. The rumors of my death have been exaggerated. Send regards to Rowan Talia. Mother. Less than 2 hours later, Evan's phone buzzed. He sent me a remote clip. The three of them bursting out of Mercer and Hale like the building was on fire. Bianca nearly slipped on the steps. Marissa's sunglasses couldn't hide her pale face. Caleb yanked his wife's arm, muttering something, but I saw only one thing in his eyes: panic. They're heading home, Evan said on the phone. Get ready, Lorraine, this is your moment. I checked the time, close to 2 p.m. I put on the deep blue dress Robert had given me on our 20th anniversary, brushing my fingers over the armrest of the mahogany chair in the living room. That chair once held him reading the paper every evening while I sat beside him listening to the steady turn of pages. Now it was the waiting seat of a ghost me. Evan had set up the cameras the night before. 3 hidden in the ceiling lights, 2 recorders in the flower vase, and behind the bronze statue. Every word I spoke would be captured cleanly enough for court. I also had a small device clipped under my collar, ready for anything. Before they arrived, I told Nora to take Rowan down to the old wine cellar, where a small escape hatch led to the alley. That cellar once held my precious Bordeaux. Now it was a shelter for the baby Marissa wanted erased from medical records. "I won't let them hurt him," Nora promised, her voice like steel. About 30 minutes later, car tires screeched outside. I heard rushed footsteps, an electronic lock click, then the door flew open. Marissa entered first. Coat still on, eyes wide as if she'd seen a ghost, and in her mind, she had. Caleb followed, pale. Bianca came last, clutching her briefcase, calm in a way that was clearly fake. I sat upright, turned my chair toward the door, light falling across half my face. I didn't speak, just smiled. The silence stretched so long you could hear the clock tick. "Oh my God!" Marissa gasped first, stepping back. "Impossible, you're dead!" I tilted my head, my voice soft as air. Death, sometimes, is just a way to see who truly wants you gone. Caleb's mouth opened, no words. Bianca, the only one still composed, spoke hoarsely and slow. "What do you want, Mrs. Whitaker? If this is some cruel joke, then—" "No, Bianca," I cut her off. "This is reality, and the cruel thing are the plans you wrote." I pointed at her briefcase. "Inside is the Project Lorraine file, isn't it? I've read it all. The facts about declaring incapacity, the fake birth certificate of Rowan Talia, or should I mention the death of Talia Reed?" For the first time, Bianca wavered, her face drained, her hand gripping the strap. Caleb turned to her, panicked. "What facts? Mom, what are you talking about? Oh, you don't know?" I locked eyes with him. "Remember the night on the yacht? Who pushed me, Caleb? Your wife, or did you agree to it yourself?" The room grew heavy. Marissa trembled, lips moving. Caleb looked down, avoiding my eyes. I looked at Bianca, trying to regain composure, but sweat dotted her temple. "I know you're smart," I said slowly, like pouring acid. "But you picked the wrong side. Accelerate inheritance, that's your phrase, isn't it? Or should I play the recording you sent Marissa about the staged accident?" Bianca swallowed. "You can't have that." "I have everything, Bianca." I leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "Recorders, cameras, medication reports, witnesses, and now your confession." A soft click flashed from the hidden clock camera, capturing Bianca shielding her face. She realized too late. "You're crazy!" Marissa screamed, lunging. Caleb held her back, shaking. "Stop! She really has the evidence!" Bianca backed toward the door, her voice rapid. I didn't kill anyone. I just followed instructions, files, procedures, everything legal. Caleb, Marissa, tell her. I only brokered?" I cut her off. "Only took money to erase a life and legalize an orphan?" "Yes, Bianca. Just administrative work." I stood, walking slowly closer, not raising my voice, but every word sharp as a blade. "You know, it's funny. I used to think the scariest death was drowning. But now I see real death is when people still breathe but have no conscience." No one answered, only the faint cry from downstairs, Rowan, calling his mother's ghost into the storm of silence. Bianca flinched, stepping back. Evan, watching through the cameras, chose that moment to activate the hidden speaker. His voice came low and distorted through the walls. "Newport police are on their way. Stay where you are." Bianca's face went white. Marissa's hands dropped. Caleb collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his palms. I turned, walked slowly back to my old chair, sat down as if I'd just finished a regular meeting. Before the police arrived, I spoke softly, just enough for the recorder to catch every word. "You called me a ghost. But I'm the ghost who smiles, and I just watched the living bury themselves. The door slammed open with a hard crack that rattled the window frames. Marissa screamed, clutching her chest like she'd seen a real spirit. Caleb froze in the doorway, his pale face still holding the shaking keys before they clattered to the floor. I stood in the living room, the same space they'd arranged to remember me after my fake funeral. Afternoon light streamed through the frame, shining on me and the baby in my arms. Rowan Talia stirred, his tiny face flushed in the light, wide eyes open, his faint cry mixed with Marissa's ragged breathing. "What are you doing with my child?" Marissa shouted, her voice hoarse with fear and rage. I shrugged slightly, holding the baby. Tighter. "Your child? No. This is Rowan Talia Whitaker, the child of Talia Reed. An 18-year-old girl who cared for you and died after a routine injection at North Shore Family Wellness Institute." The room went silent. Caleb opened his mouth, shook his head. "No, that's not true. You can't know that." I looked straight at him, my voice slow, each word heavy as stone. "I know everything. The $220,000 in cash. The video of you and your wife entering the clinic, Bianca Mercer's fax. And this." I opened my bag, pulled out the thick file, spread it across the wooden table. Photos, receipts, screenshots, and on top, the Project Lorraine, Phase 3, accident page. Marissa's eyes went wide, swallowing hard. This is attorney-client material you stole?" "No." I cut her off. "I photographed it in this very house, in Robert's office. The house you're living in thanks to forged transfers. And I have the right to take back everything, including my name." I set the recorder on the table, pressed record, the red light blinking. "Under Rhode Island law, one-party consent is enough. And I'm that party." Marissa backed up, her voice low and hard. "What do you want? Money? Or just to see us on our knees?" I laughed softly, cold. "No, Marissa, I want justice. I want everyone to know you tried to kill me and killed this baby's mother." Caleb raised his hands to his face, murmuring, "Marissa, stop talking." But she didn't. Panic turned to aggression. "You have nothing. These papers are fake. These photos could be staged. If you think you can undo this with some amateur tricks, then..." I pulled out Talia Reed's notebook. Evan had gotten it from Nurse Leah. I opened to the last page, the handwriting still shaky. "Tomorrow they'll give me the shot. The doctor says it will be easier. I just want to live to see the baby once." I looked up. "She has never got that chance. But I did, and I'm holding him now." Marissa went silent. Her face drained. Caleb trembled in the chair, staring at the baby like facing his own guilt. I looked at them both, my voice low. "Bianca may have been caught first, but you two can't hide forever. I'm giving you 24 hours. In that time, hand over all devices, sign statements about working with Mercer, and send me copies of the financial records. Do it, and I won't pursue attempted murder charges. I only demand the truth in court. If not..." I bent and kissed Rowan's forehead, then looked Marissa in the eye. "I'll let the FBI, family court, and national press have it all. Not just Talia's death, but the money laundering in your charity fund." The words sliced the silence. Marissa's mouth opened, but no sound came. Caleb's shoulders slumped, his head dropped. For the first time, he didn't look like an enemy. He looked like a lost boy caught in his wife's game. You wouldn't dare," Marissa said weakly, a last reflex. I raised an eyebrow. "You think so?" Then pulled out my phone and played Bianca's recorded voice. "Accelerate the inheritance process before she rewrites the will. An accident is the safest choice." Bianca's voice filled the room, cold and clear. Marissa's face shifted from pale to crimson. Caleb jumped up, yelling, "You lied to me! I thought it was just fake medical records." Marissa backed away, trembling, tears spilling. I did it for us. For the future. You don't understand. Your mother would never give you a cent. I gave you, Caleb." I cut in, looking straight at my son. "I gave you everything. But you let someone teach you how to trade your mother's trust for money." He dropped back into the chair, silent, hands on his head. I closed the file and slipped it into my bag, my voice firm. 24 hours from now. If I don't get confirmation, every copy goes to the press and the federal prosecutor. Don't try anything stupid. The cameras in this house are still live. I stood, walked to the door. Rowan stirred. I handed him to Nora, waiting in the hall, whispering, "Keep him safe. His mother died for the truth. We can't let her die in vain." I left in silence. Behind me, Marissa's choked sob rose, then a door slammed hard. I knew they wouldn't sleep tonight. As I stepped into the yard, I saw Evan waiting by the car, his cap pulled low. He looked at me, asked, "They agree?" I shook my head. "Not yet, but they will." Someone like Marissa can't stand being cornered. Evan lit a cigarette, white smoke curling in the sea breeze. "If they don't choose right," I smiled cold. I already guessed. And they've just called the cleaner. The real game starts now. I couldn't sleep. Since leaving that house, every cell in me was stretched, listening for any unusual sound. All my senses were on alert, as if even the wind at the window could turn dangerous. Around 4 a.m., my phone vibrated. Evan. His voice low, urgent, clipped. "They're hiring a cleaner from New York, a man named Darian Holt. I've heard of him, handles post-event problems for the financial elite, never leaves a trace." I sat up, heart pounding. "How soon will he arrive?" "Before tonight." "They paid through a shell company in Manhattan. I traced the account, but he's the kind who can't be tracked. Lorraine, you have to get out. Now." I got out of bed, woke Asha and Hank O'Rourke, who'd been sleeping on the chair near the window. He didn't ask, just listened to a few words, then stood and put on his coat, his weathered face suddenly tight. "Let's go," he said. "I've got a safer place, a small island off Rhode Island. Old fishing buddy. This season it's empty, only gulls go there." I held Rowan Talia, wrapping the blanket around him. He slept soundly, breathing like a strand of silk. We left the inn while it was still dark, the fog so thick the headlights only reached a few yards. Hank piloted his old wooden boat, the engine grumbling in the night. I curled up, holding the baby close, listening to the waves hit the hull. About 2 hours later, we reached a small island only a few acres wide, covered in wild grass and white stones. In the middle stood a 2-story wooden house with a tilted chimney and dry climbing vines. Hank called it Morrigan's Rock, a place he and his friend had used to ride out storms years ago. "No network, no cameras, no neighbors," he said. "If they want to find you, they'll have to search the whole ocean." I froze. "Dead? When?" "This morning. Shot twice in the chest at a hotel in Providence. No security cameras working at the time. Local police think it was a robbery, but nothing was taken." A chill ran down my spine. Someone wanted him silenced. Exactly, and I think they're scrubbing the whole chain of contacts. I checked the Mercer and Hale accounts. $500,000 was withdrawn overnight. No trail, no wire, it just vanished. You know what that means. I nodded even though he couldn't see. It meant a high-level cleanup. It meant someone above Bianca Mercer was calling the shots. Asha, sitting beside me, listened. Her eyes lit up when Evan sent over a hotel surveillance still. In the photo, behind Darian Holt, a woman in a hooded cap walked by, only half her face visible. Asha squinted, her voice low. "Wait, this woman, I've seen her before." "Where?" I asked. "At St. Mary's Hospital, about 6 months ago." She came to the front desk asking for a list of elderly patients with no family visitors. I remember because she left a fake business card said Charity for Elder Care. The room seemed to thicken. Evan was quiet for a few seconds, then said softly, "That matches the report I'm looking at. A string of elderly patients who passed peacefully after getting legal counseling about their assets." Most share the same file pattern: witness signatures by Bianca Mercer, medical sign-offs from the same clinic, North Shore Family Wellness, and financial advising from Kane Holdings. 3 links: medical, legal, financial. I leaned back, heart pounding. A network. Right. And they weren't just targeting you. I've found 20 other cases over the past 10 years across New England. Each one an accident: falls downstairs, carbon monoxide, drug reaction, slips in a bathtub. All happening weeks after the victim transferred assets or was declared incapacitated. And all tied to people connected to Mercer. Evan sent over an image, a long data sheet with names, dates, causes of death, and the same note: family pre-advised by Mercer and Hale legal team. I read line by line, my fingers shaking at their ages: 67, 72, 80, 76. All wealthy, older, alone. People like me. And I almost became number 21, I whispered. Asha squeezed my hand, speaking gently. But you survived, and now you're the only one who can speak for them. Evan sighed on the other end. I'll forward all this to federal agents. But Lorraine, you have to understand, once I do, they'll know you're alive. They won't sit still. These people have the money and power to erase everything. Once you step into the light, there's no going back. I looked out the window. The sea glittered, waves breathing like a sleeping beast. I wasn't scared anymore. I knew one thing clearly: if I stayed quiet, the baby in my arms would end up on that list too. I understand, I said quietly. If I don't speak, Rowan could suffocate in a furnace incident like the others. No, Evan, I died once. I won't die again in silence. Hank stepped over and laid a hand on my shoulder. I'll handle security. Asha will watch the baby. Lorraine, you say everything. Don't let them keep going. I nodded, tears rising but not falling. Outside, the wind kicked up and tossed the curtains. I felt like Robert was standing out there in the gusts, nodding at me. He used to teach me that strength doesn't come from shouting, but from knowing exactly when to speak. I turned to Evan, voice firm. Get everything ready. Tonight I'll record a video statement. Tomorrow morning, we send it to the media, attorneys, and the FBI at the same time. They might kill me, but they can't kill the truth. Evan was silent for a beat, then said, I knew you'd say that, and I'm already set. Lorraine, this time, we're not just exposing Caleb and Marissa, we're dragging the whole network into the light. I held Rowan and kissed his forehead. The sunset washed warm over his tiny skin, strangely peaceful. In that moment, I wasn't a victim anymore. I was carrying living evidence for dozens of forgotten souls. The sky bled thin red as the sun sank into the water. I whispered, a promise to myself. Tomorrow, their darkness ends. And it starts with me, the woman they thought was dead. I never thought I'd have to use myself as bait. But standing before the inn's mirror, looking at an old face in dim light, I knew there was only one way to end it: walk into the wolf's den myself. Evan pushed back hard. You don't have to do this. We already have enough evidence. I shook my head. We have pieces, Evan, not the picture. Only when Bianca Mercer says it herself and gets recorded will it be undeniable. I need her to confess in her own words. He was quiet a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but you're not going in alone. I'll have a listening team right outside. And Hank will be a block away. That afternoon, Nora sent an encrypted text. They'll be home at 7 p.m. Marissa's setting out wine. Bianca said, come settle this once and for all. I read it, my heart tightening. It was time. I put on my old navy wool coat, buttoned to the collar, no jewelry. I carried only one thing: a tiny clip-on recorder Evan had set up. Inside the house, Nora had already planted 3 more devices, one in the fireplace mantel, one behind the landscape painting, and one under the dining table where voices carry best. At 10 to 7, I walked up to the gate of the house that used to be mine. Warm yellow light spilled through the glass, the smell of wine and oak drifting out. In a gray van a block away, Evan and 2 agents sat silent, headsets on, signal locked. I rang. The door opened. Caleb appeared, looking tired and older than 40. His eyes met mine for a second, then slid away. "Mom," he said, voice cracked. I answered softly, "Let's talk. About Rowan. About ending this." The living room looked the same, but everything in it was a battlefield. Marissa sat on the sofa with a glass of wine, a half smile. "I knew you'd come. Old people like you can't stand seeing your money in someone else's hands." I didn't reply. I sat, set my bag on the table, eyes sweeping the room, every corner recording. And at exactly 7 p.m., Bianca Mercer walked in. Neat, polished, a faint, expensive perfume filling the room. She smiled like this was a contract signing. "Mrs. Lorraine Whitaker," her voice smooth as silk. "I'm glad you finally chose to sit down. I believe we all want to end this, peacefully." I leaned back, my tone low and even. "Peaceful for whom, Bianca? For the people you were leased, or for the ones living off their corpses?" Her brow lifted slightly, but she didn't deny a thing. "We provide a peaceful end for those with no one left. You must understand, Lorraine, the system is complicated. Many people want to go gently." I looked straight at her and pressed the words, "How many?" She hesitated, then spoke slowly, even, like reading a report. 39 files resolved, all legal, with medical and legal sign-offs. None were prosecuted. Outside, Evan held his breath. Every word Bianca spoke was being captured as clean as a hammer strike. I kept my voice steady. "And among those 39 was Talia Reed, right?" Bianca shrugged. "If that's the name you want to use, I only know case F-237. A complicated matter, maternal death due to complications. The child transferred to guardians under the law. All paperwork complete." I heard Marissa chuckle under her breath. "See? All legal." "You've got nothing." I turned to her, my smile thin as a blade. "Right. Legal. Like paying cash to the clinic, swapping a birth certificate, and hiring someone to stage a boating accident for your mother-in-law. All nice and legal." Caleb gripped the chair arms, lips tight. I looked straight at him, voice low but hard. "This is the family you chose, Caleb? Killing, forging documents, taking a child on someone else's blood?" He opened his mouth to speak but didn't get the chance. Bianca set her briefcase on the table, her voice sharper. "Moralize all you want, Lorraine. You can't prove it. You don't have video, witnesses, or original records. I have everything legal. If you want to be left alone, sign this waiver of claims in exchange for preserving guardianship of the child. You'll be safe. You just need to disappear." I looked at the papers. Outside, I was calm. Inside, my heart pounded like a drum. Now was the time to make her say more. I asked quietly, "If I sign, you guarantee there won't be another accident, right?" Bianca smiled cold. "Guaranteed. No more accidents, no more furnace carbon monoxide, no more slips in the bathroom. You just stay quiet." Evan nearly shouted in a whisper over the comms. "She just said it." "We've got it, Lorraine. Let her keep talking." I took a deep breath and asked, "The people before me, they got the same treatment, didn't they?" Bianca tilted her head, voice flat. "They all passed peacefully. Some chose sleeping pills, others were helped with gas. We call it a humane ending. Don't pretend to be shocked, Mrs. Whitaker. This world runs because of people like us, people who know when to drop the curtain." I was silent. 1 second, 2. Then from the door came 3 hard knocks, dry and sharp like a judge's gavel. "Newport Police, open up!" Marissa jumped up screaming. Caleb froze, useless. Bianca whipped around, but it was too late. Evan and 2 federal agents rushed in, reading the warrant. Bianca Mercer, you're under arrest for serial murder, financial fraud, and legal manipulation." The room exploded. Marissa screamed. Caleb collapsed into a chair, and I sat still, staring straight at Bianca. They cuffed her. Her eyes were full of hate, but the confidence was gone. "You set me up," she said low. I answered softly, eyes never leaving hers. "No, Bianca. You set yourself up. I just turned on the light so everyone could see." Outside, sirens wailed, blue and red washing the windows. I bent to pick up the file she'd tried to hand me, then tore it in half and let the pieces drift to the floor, the dry rip sounding like the close of a long chapter. As for me, the woman once shoved into the sea, I could finally see the shore. The next morning, Newport felt like it had woken from a long storm. On the streets, people buzzed about the stunning arrest. High-profile attorney Bianca Mercer accused of serial murder, financial fraud, and legal manipulation. Her face was on the morning news, vacant eyes, tangled hair, a once proud expression stripped down to failure. I sat in a small room at the police station, first light slipping through the window onto the wood table. Evan stood beside me, hand resting lightly on my shoulder. "Everything you did, it was worth it," he said quietly. "We have the full confession, including her line about the resolved files. The FBI has the case. The whole network is coming into the light." I just nodded. Every feeling in me was wrung dry, leaving a quiet emptiness. Maybe this is how it feels to come back from the dead, not joy, not gloating, just relief to still be breathing. Caleb and Marissa were held as co-conspirators and for fraud in the inheritance filings. Passing the interrogation room, I saw my son hunched over, hands shaking on the table. He looked up, eyes red. "Mom, I'm sorry." I stopped, looked at him a long moment. "Sorry won't erase it, Caleb, but if you tell the truth, maybe there's a part of you still worth saving." He nodded and turned away, shoulders trembling. For the first time in years, I felt no anger, only pity for a son who let greed and fear lead him. 3 days later, I left Newport and went back to the little island where Asha and Hank were caring for Rowan. The baby was smiling now, big brown eyes catching the morning light. I picked him up. The smell of formula and sea salt softened me. "You're proof that light can grow back out of darkness," I whispered. Asha smiled, hand on my shoulder. "You did what no one else dared, spoke for the silenced." I smiled, looking out to the water where the sun was climbing. "I'm just a survivor, and I owe a debt to those who died for the truth." In the weeks that followed, media across New England ran a series called The Mercer Files. More than 20 peaceful passings were reopened. Families came to me, hugged me, thanked me for not staying quiet. A special court was set up to review incapacity rulings. My name was removed from the deceased list. I, Lorraine Whitaker, was officially brought back in the eyes of the law. On the day I testified, I wore a black coat and pinned on Robert's silver brooch. I looked around at the faces of families waiting for justice, people like me, who'd lost someone and been told they had no right to know. I spoke evenly, firmly. Those who claim peace at the end turned the trust of the elderly into a marketplace. I'm not afraid of dying anymore. I already died once. What I fear is silence. And today, I'm not silent. The trial ran 4 weeks. In the end, the verdicts came. Bianca Mercer, life without parole. 2 doctors at North Shore, 18 years. Clarice Nolan and Edward Kane, co-conspirators, 8 years each. Marissa got 12 years. Caleb received 5 years of community supervision and was permanently disinherited. Carrying Rowan out of the courthouse, a sea wind lifted his little blanket. He smiled up at me, wide-eyed, not understanding a thing. Maybe he'll grow up never needing all the details, only that there was a mother, a grandmother, and a world that paid a price so he could live. That evening on the island, I wrote the final lines in my journal. "Robert, you once said life is a series of lessons in courage. Now I understand courage isn't not being afraid. It's moving forward while you're still shaking. Rowan will grow up in love, not in schemes. And I, at last, get to live as myself, free, light, and true. I closed the notebook and looked out at the sea. The night was calm. Moonlight silvered the water, shimmering like a warm farewell to all the forgotten souls. Rowan let out a small cry. I pulled him close, patted gently, and whispered, "Sleep, little one. The world is quiet now." Then I turned to the small camera Evan left, switched it on, and looked straight into the lens. I knew the video would be posted as the final chapter of the series. I spoke slowly, as if to anyone watching from a quiet living room, a hospital bed, or the loneliness of old age. If you're hearing me, remember, you're never too old to say enough. Believe in the value of your own voice. Sometimes a single honest word can topple an empire of lies. I paused, then smiled softly. I'm Lorraine Whitaker. I'm still here. And you, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments so I know how far this voice has reached. And if my story touched you, please subscribe, or simply share it with someone who needs hope. Thank you for staying till the very end. Outside the window, dawn lit the water, wiping away the night. I lifted Rowan, smiling as he beamed in the first light. An old chapter had closed. And I, the woman once shoved to the bottom, had finally surfaced, not as a victim, but as a witness to justice reborn.